Hello there! In this video I am going to show you how to prepare tubes of watercolors. To do that, I will first prepare the watercolor vehicle, then proceed to mix it with the pigments. Let's prepare the vehicle. I'm going to use a pigment I prepared a while ago, you can check out that video too. In order to prepare the vehicle, some reagents are needed. I will explain why each of them are necessary as I use them. The first and most important one, the binder. The binder is responsible for attaching the pigment to the painting media and for the painter to be able to apply it. It also enhances colors, making them brighter by preventing the pigment from embedding in the cellulose fibers by capillary action. And here it is, the most common and traditional binder for watercolors, gum arabic. Gum arabic is an excretion of acacia trees, and it mostly consists of a complex mixture of polysaccharides. As you can see, it looks like sugar candy, and in fact, it chemically doesn't differ that much from it. I am going to prepare 100 ml of vehicle. For that, about 40 grams of gum arabic are weighed and dissolved in 80 ml of hot water. In this case, I added the water first and then heated it while stirring. Once it comes in contact with water, it gets quite sticky. That's why it's used as a binder. I had to use a glass rod to help the stirring magnet. The dark particles you see detaching from the gum are probably bark from the acacia tree it was harvested from. This is going to take a while, so I will prepare the rest of the reagents. Next one is the humectant. It prevents the mixture from drying too fast, so the painter has more time to work with. Here I'm weighing 5 grams of glucose monohydrate, which is a monosaccharide. I am using it because of its hygroscopic properties, meaning it is a compound that traps water and prevents it from evaporating. The glucose is then dissolved in 10 ml of distilled water. Then, approximately 50% of that volume is added in form of another complex of sugars, that is, bee honey. Honey has very good humectant properties. Next reagent is the filler. In this case I used 1 gram of rice starch with 10 ml of water. It is then boiled for some time, after which 10 more ml of water is added. Same as in cookery, starch increases viscosity, which makes it easier to work with the paintbrush. At this point, it is so thick that bubbles can go up in the solution, as seen. Back with the binder, it takes a while but is eventually dissolved upon heating. I need to get rid of all the particles, so I first use a strainer and then a scouring pad using a funnel to filter them. The solution is too thick to use paper filter or a cotton black, so I found this pad more suitable for the task. This is what I have at this point: binder, humectant and filler. With all these, the paint will dry and harden and it will be difficult to redissolve, so a plasticizer is needed. For that, pure glycerin is used. Finally, we can prepare the vehicle. For that, 8 ml of humectant, filler and plasticizer solutions are added into a larger beaker. As they are in less quantity, they are added first. We can say they are solutes, while the binder solution is the solvent. Before all the binder is added, we need to prevent the mixture from oxidation or developing mold. And in order to do that, a few drops of clove essential oil are added as preservative. Clove essential oil has antifungal and antibiotic compounds on it that will help preserve both vehicle and pigment. And in addition to honey, it will give a nice smell to it. After that, more binder solution is added until it reached 100 ml. The solution is then thoroughly mixed for no less than 15 minutes to ensure it is completely homogeneous. And finally, it is completed. 100 ml of watercolor vehicle ready to make some tube watercolors. Let's start with that. I will use a manganese violet I synthesized in a previous video. All the pigment is first poured in a glass working rectangle I bought for this purpose. Then, a small hole is made with the help of a metal spatula, so that vehicle can be poured in. Vehicle solution is poured in small volumes first. The idea is to use the least amount of vehicle needed to suspend the pigment to achieve the desired thickness in the paint, and this is where the fun begins. The first mixing process is started with the spatula to do a rough mixing. The goal here is just to make sure no pigment is left dry, so all of it becomes in contact with the liquid phase. Eventually it was too thick to work with, so more vehicle has to be added. With the help of another spatula, all the material is allowed to be worked homogeneously. Now that a rough mixing is finished, a glass Milori is used to thoroughly mix and spread the paint. This will completely mix it and get rid of both air bubbles and pigment lumps trapped in the paint. The technique is quite simple. Just use rotational movements to mix it and, after a minute or so, use a spatula to collect it together again. As this motion spreads the paint, it will start to evaporate, so it's better to do this in colder temperatures. The process was repeated a couple times. It was getting dry, so more vehicle was added in small volumes. When it felt smooth enough, all of it is put together with the help of two spatulas. After that, it can be carefully put inside an empty paint tube. I had no other way of doing that than using the spatulas as best as I could. Alternatively, it can be poured in pans to let it dry into solid watercolors, but I prefer to prepare tubes for this video. Anyway, once finished, the tube can be closed. Since the volume for this paint is so low, scissors were used to cut the tube accordingly. Then, a pair of pliers were used to seal the end of it. Finally, the tube is labeled. From here, I repeated the process with a total of 5 more pigments. Green, blue, yellow and red were purchased from a store, while the extra green is a sample of malachite I prepared a while ago. Once the tubes were filled and sealed, they were labeled. In the end, this is the watercolor set I came up with. blue, green, red, yellow, and my own manganese violet and malachite green. Now let's use them. I know nothing about painting, but fortunately a friend of mine is experienced in the field. It is worth mentioning that a few months has passed and the interaction between each pigment and the vehicle differ from one another. For example, in the blue watercolor a separation between pigment and vehicle occurred, but only in the very beginning of the tube, as seen. The manganese violet experienced no alteration and remained in perfect conditions. On the other hand, the malachite was turned towards a muddier hue of green, as some degradation occurred. As I will show you later, this happened to a less extent in the center of the tube. The green watercolor developed some gas as the pressure inside got higher. Also, the paint itself was a little bit too fluid, but the pigment was in good conditions. Apart from a little separation, just like in the blue tube, the yellow watercolor was perfect. Like the manganese violet, the red watercolor was exemplary. Here you can see that as more paint is taken out the tube, the color gets more similar to what the initial malachite looked like. The last drop was decent, so it was dropped separately. We decided to make some gradients of each watercolor so we can see how they perform individually. In general terms, they ran pretty smoothly through the cellulose fibers of the watercolor paper, but the best was the yellow one. Once the commercial pigments were used, we started with both malachite green and manganese violet. As said before, the malachite had a better color in the central part of the tube, which is what you are seeing here, compared with the first portion. Here we found that pigment particles are not as small as in the previous examples. Both of my own pigments have no particle size treatment the way commercial pigments do, therefore this is how they end up after a synthesis process. Here you can clearly see how the pigment particles interact with the painting media, as they are larger than the commercial pigments used before. That's all for this video. I would like to thank my friend Sara for making this final part possible and also my Patreons for supporting the channel. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one and, as always, don't forget to enjoy our hobbies.